The basketball offseason has arrived for a lot of you. This is a time where you can either make a jump in your development and come back next year a different player, or sit in frustration as your improvement stagnates. Let me know in the comments what your plans for this offseason are. Now let's get into 7 strategies you should keep in mind as you begin to attack this spring and summer. I get this question all the time from younger players. Should I play AAU basketball or should I just focus on improving my skills this spring and summer? AAU basketball is becoming more and more of a controversial issue every year, and I can see why it has its critics.
Kobe, you've been pretty critical of the AAU system and the way American players are brought up.
Not pretty critical, I'm extremely critical.
I played AAU basketball from 5th grade all the way up until my senior year of high school. So I have had the full experience when it comes to playing on different teams, traveling to tournaments, and all the rest that comes with it. I think in general, being on a team where you only practice once a week and then you travel to a tournament where you play 4 to 6 games in 2 days is probably not the most beneficial thing young players can be doing. I'm also no doctor, but a lot of experts are pointing to this phenomenon of playing so many games as one of the reasons that younger NBA players are getting injured now more than ever. Let me be clear, this isn't the only issue with youth basketball in America. There are plenty of other issues, but playing that many games in such a short amount of time over years and years obviously creates wear and tear on the body. Playing AAU also de-emphasizes training your skills while valuing more games and winning. This is pretty much the opposite of having a process over results mindset, which is what I'm trying to get all of you to have. However, playing AAU basketball is also by far the best way to get recruited to play in college. Colgate actually saw me play in an AAU tournament my junior year, so if I hadn't played AAU, there's a chance I wouldn't have gotten my only scholarship offer. But keep in mind, realistically, 99% of basketball players aren't going to start getting recruited until the spring and summer of their sophomore year at the earliest. Most of the time, your junior year of high school is when recruiting becomes serious. And of course, there are so many players who don't even start to get recruited until their senior year of high school. So looking back at my journey, if I asked myself, did I need to start playing AAU basketball in 5th grade? Definitely not. If you are a really unskilled player or just starting out at the game of basketball, I truly believe spending your offseason training your skills will be much more beneficial to you in the long run than playing AAU basketball. If you're an older player who has goals of playing in college, then of course, eventually you're gonna have to make that decision for yourself. I'm not gonna be able to sit here and tell you exactly what you need to do because every situation is different. However, even if you are playing AAU, I will emphasize that you have to be training your skills too. If you aren't, then you probably won't be improving like you want to in this offseason. Okay, now let's talk about what your offseason skill training should actually look like. Now, I'm not gonna sit here and break down exactly what days of the week you should be training or what specific skills you need to work on. However, I do wanna give you 2 tips to actually see improvement in your workouts. First, I want to emphasize quality over quantity when it comes to the reps that you're getting within your workout and the actual time you spend in the gym. I think it's easy for younger players to get to a court without any kind of plan, just start shooting around for a bit, maybe work on some random ball handling, and then get distracted by a text message. Before you know it, you've been in the gym for an hour, but you haven't actually done anything to get better. Believe me, I've been in these situations too. The same is true within each individual rep. I'm definitely not the kind of guy who says that every rep needs to be game speed or you need to pound the ball through the floor in your workouts. That's not really the way I train. However, there is something to be said for working on things that you will actually do in a game. Have a focused plan when you get to the gym so you can spend that hour to 90 minutes actually getting better. Next, it is really important to incorporate live play into your workouts. This is how you can use the skills you've been training against real defense. However, I would focus on playing more 1-on-1s, 2-on-2s, and 3-on-3s as opposed to just playing games. First, defensively, it forces you to guard players in open space, which is something as basketball players we can all get better at. And in these smaller games, you're forced to make more decisions on every possession. Sometimes in a real game, you'll just go stand in the corner for an entire possession and have no impact on the play. Small-sided games force you to react and play off your teammates and also make decisions with the ball. These are 2 essential skills to being a well-rounded player. And if you say that you have no one else to play with, well, my advice is find someone. There are other players out there who also want to get better. You just need to seek them out. If you don't, then you will be missing out on this really important aspect of training. I think it's a really terrible idea for you to enter the offseason with a goal that looks like this. I'm going to average 30 points a game when I get back to my high school team next year. For most players, this is obviously unrealistic, but it also puts you in this mentality where if you don't accomplish that goal, then you start to think that the work you put in wasn't sufficient, even if you did actually get better. Now, I like to set goals that are less specific but still attainable. Figuring out what your goals for this offseason are takes some honest reflection on the past season you just had. For instance, my last year of college, I had a really bad shooting year for my standards. I finished the year shooting around 31% from three, which isn't completely terrible, but I do consider shooting to be one of my most impactful skills. So obviously that wasn't up to par. So as I headed into that off season and I got ready to play professionally, I decided to really focus on having consistency with my shot as well as the mental aspect of making and missing shots. My goal wasn't that I had to be a 40% three-point shooter in my first pro season. Instead, my goal was to get better at the shots that I get the most often in my games and also to stay level-headed when I miss shots. And now I can look back at that offseason and say I definitely improved in those two areas. Find some aspects of your game that you need to get better at and can realistically improve in this offseason. I would never set a goal to be able to windmill dunk in a game by the end of this offseason because that's never gonna happen. However, I already know one of my goals heading into this next offseason is going to be to get stronger because of the physicality in the game overseas. Setting these kind of goals will focus your workouts while also giving you freedom once your next season begins. I'm a big believer in taking time away from basketball and a believer in recovery in general. Every year after my college season, I would take about 2 weeks completely off from basketball, try to not even think about the game for those 2 weeks. I really needed that mental and physical rest after months and months of the season. However, I remember in high school, I would always get so stressed if I took any time off, thinking that I would lose all my skills. That isn't really how it works. Just keep in mind that after the NBA season, Steph Curry's trainer has him take about 4 to 6 weeks off from his training. Now, this is not my advice for you because the NBA season is 82 games plus the playoffs. NBA players really need that mental and physical rest for their well-being. I just tell you this because I know so many young players are afraid to take any time off, even though in the long run, it will actually benefit you. I also think for really young players, playing other sports can be beneficial. If you make basketball your year-round focus from too young of an age, you risk getting burnt out and you risk injuries as you get older. I played soccer until the 8th grade and I also ran cross country my first couple years of high school. Diversifying in your sports is not a terrible thing. As you get older and basketball really becomes your main focus year round, recovery is even more important. I will always take 1 day a week completely off from training in the off season. And usually in the summer, my family goes on a vacation, and whether that's 5 days or a week or whatever, I try not to worry about basketball and just let my body and my mind rest. Now let me be clear, consistency in your training is critical. You can't train for 2 days and then take 4 days off, then 3 days on and another week off and think you'll keep getting better over time. To see results, basketball is gonna be a grind. And that is why taking rest and recovery seriously is even more important. Listen to your body too. If you wake up and you feel exhausted, maybe it's time for an off day. I'm not an expert on lifting, however, it is something that I've taken really seriously for a while now, so I wanna speak on it. This is another area where you can really make a leap in the off season and start to advance past your peers. When I got to college, I was a skinny kid who got pushed around a lot, but by the time I left, I was actually pretty strong. Part of that was, of course, me growing into my body, but I think an even bigger aspect is that I really started to take my strength training seriously. That whole idea that training your strength from a young age will stunt your growth or development has been debunked, and most professionals say that kids as young as 8 can begin weight training. Again, I'm not an expert on this, but the earlier you can build the habit of training your body and lifting, the better. It's kind of common knowledge that basketball players hate lifting, so the more you can take it seriously, the more you'll just separate yourself as you get older. Even for younger players, I think just doing push-ups, pull-ups, and sit-ups every day can really start to increase your strength. Strength training the right way is probably the best way to prevent injuries, and of course it gives you an advantage on the court, so really try and make it a priority this offseason. There are some great videos and programs that are tailored specifically to basketball players out there as well. One piece of advice I have for you this offseason: find a new interest, pick up a new hobby, learn a new skill, do something productive outside of basketball. The more you can diversify your interests, the less you will rely on basketball for your overall happiness. Now, this is one of the keys to feeling free when you do get on the court. So get creative, please get off TikTok, and try and develop yourself as a person. I have a lot of interests outside of basketball, so I'll share with you some of the things that I've done over the years to make myself a more well-rounded person. Obviously, creating this YouTube channel has allowed me to share my journey and help others on theirs. In college, I started a podcast with my best friend talking about basketball analytics. When I was in high school, I actually got really passionate about movies and movie making, and I've spent a lot of time learning about that field and of course watching movies. I also enjoy all types of outdoor activities, from hiking to biking, whatever it might be. Having other interests will make you less dependable on basketball, which I believe increases the love for the game in the long run. Whatever it is you enjoy doing outside of basketball, spend some of your free time this offseason doing that thing. It will benefit you greatly as life goes on. And along those same lines, the offseason is a great time to put an emphasis on taking care of your overall health. Obviously, nutrition is something that I talk a lot about on this channel. It is truly such an important part of basketball. What you put in your body affects your recovery, your energy, your sleep. I can't tell you exactly what you should or shouldn't eat, but a part of becoming a mature person is realizing how important food is, regardless of basketball. I also want to challenge all younger players to get off your phone, computer, and video games more and get outside. The weather is probably starting to get better for you. I'm still in Finland, so for me, it's still freezing cold, but get yourself outside. When you do take rest days, you can still get outside and go for a walk or a hike. Something I love to do when I'm home for the summer is go to my high school and run the bleachers for some extra conditioning. I don't know if it really does all that much, but it feels good to be outside and get a sweat in. Push yourself to take a mature approach to your overall health this offseason. I think taking advantage of the offseason in the best way possible is really a sign of growth for you as a person. It's easy to not take things seriously and be lazy because, let's be honest, that is what most normal kids do in the spring and summer. But hopefully you have bigger aspirations. Hopefully you want to push yourself as a player and as a person. Don't be that player who comes back next year the same as before. And if you're trying to get on your coach's good side, watch this video on the secret that nobody tells young hoopers. I appreciate all of you, and I'm excited to see your growth this offseason. I'll talk to you soon.